Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Woke Blokes Podcast. Ryan Hassan from the Centre for Healing here, as always, joined by the great, what did I call you before? The Fresh Prince of McRae, the Sultan of Steel, Nick Sutherland from Myndfit. Nico, how are you, mate?
I need some intro music. I've got
Yeah.
John Cena.
John Cena, you can't see me.
You can't see me.
All right, well, look, maybe that's if I find an extra hour or two this week, I'll try and get some intro music just for you, mate.
Oh, I did it the other day with when a client walked in, and I had it all teed up on my phone. And as soon as I heard him coming in, I'm like, press play. So as soon as he steps through, it's like, and I'm like, Shane, can you see him? Where is he? Where is he?
It'd be good. Or even the sound of like a standing ovation, like a slow clap that turns into a standing ovation as you enter the room.
We take our work very seriously at Myndfit.
It's a good ego practice, though, isn't it?
That's a great ego practice. It's a beautiful thing. I'm great, mate. What am I? Yeah, the Melbourne weather's been.
What am I? Well, that's a very deep question. You said that flippantly, but that's a very deep question.
It is. I am just conscious awareness. So, in that regard, I've just been observing the weather, and it's been really interesting to see. Like, it's Australian summer comes to mind, 35 degrees, seatbelt branding, because when you get in the car, it's like you can't walk
tanned one arm because you've been fat arming it out the
taxi arm, yep. But it's been pretty wet and overcast and sort of low 20s for the last week or so. So today she's popped up, and it's been interesting weather-wise. Life has been great. So we took some time off over Chrissy, just from Christmas Eve. Went back on the 4th. So just first week back at work this week. So that's been great. Home life's been good. We had really great family time over Chrissy, and we bought a puppy dog.
Oh my God, I've seen the pictures.
I should go and get her, shouldn't I? No, we're recording. I'll text them to bring her in.
Yeah. Just for
everyone's got to meet Daisy.
Yeah, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then you can jump on the YouTube channel, the Centre for Healing, if you want to see this beautiful puppy. Yeah, some of the pictures you put of the new puppy and Polly, I'm just like, I was showing Mel, and Mel's like, we're getting a puppy as soon as we get back to Australia, aren't we? I'm like, yeah, we are.
It's so awesome, man. Like, Polly's 8, and she's the first day she was just like, Dad, what is this thing? What's this creature? It smells different. It's doing weird things. It's making weird noises. Dad. And then she slowly, over the next day or two, started relaxing. And Daisy's been great. Daisy just loves her and just runs up and, play with me. You're my sister. And so, they were just having a good old wrestle. But Daisy's 1.8 kilo.
Jesus.
She's 1.8 kilograms. Polly's 38 kilos. So it's like Andre the Giant versus Rey Mysterio. A little
child. Yeah.
It's classic. But Polly's great. She just lays there and sort of lets Daisy get her. And
it's funny watching the because dogs are obviously a herd animal, pack animal. Sorry, that's a better word. Yeah, and there'll be that little integration period of like, hang on, is this new entity? Is this going to be a new member of the pack? We had it when I had Disco, and then we had Tommy, and I was like, how's he going to react to having a little baby? Because Disco, was a Rottweiler, massive bloody dog, and for the first few days or maybe a week, just constantly just smelling, getting kind of freaked out when he was crying, like, what is this little puppy doing? And but then all of a sudden there's this moment where they just bang, welcome them into the pack, and then they're very, protective and gentle and beautiful, and it's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's nature, like literally in action, and Daisy just keeps running into Polly's bed and trying to cuddle up next to her, and Polly's like, "This is my bed, it's my territory," and now it's like humans when you get a dog, you're like, right, it's not coming in the bedroom, it's not coming in the carpeted rooms, it's only staying here. and it's definitely not on the beds. And the next thing, all right, so that's just in the bedrooms, but not up on the bed. And then the next week it's in bed, and then the next week it's taken over your whole bed. You know, it just you can't help it. And I think Polly's experiencing the same thing. So
it's so hard to say no to a cute puppy. You know, I remember we did that with Disco when he was little, and I'm like, all right, number one rule is just not coming on the couch. And then a day later, I'm cuddling on the couch. And my ex-wife's like, I thought we said not on the couch. I'm like, but look at him. And then
shut up.
Next thing we know, he's like 60 kilos and he's laying on me on the couch. And I'm like, yeah, probably shouldn't have like let him on the couch when he was a puppy.
I'm trying to do that with the kids and even with Emma. Like, I'm trying to be the strong one. You know, and I'm no, you know, put it down. Oh, but look at her. And I'm like, yeah, but in a year, she's going to be 30 kilos and doing this, and it's going to annoy you, and you're going to go, get off the couch. I'm like, but you've created this.
Yeah, that's right. You've programmed it early on.
We have to do it now, what we want to do later.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's good fun. I think it's good fun having a new, you know, the energy of a puppy in the house.
Yeah, totally. She's just a little machine. She's like a gremlin drinking water after midnight. She's like all teeth and I'm just eating everything. And then all of a sudden she's just asleep and she's just like, arr. She looks like a bat sometimes. She looks like a possum. She looks like a mouse. I know how it is for you now, being a father. You know, it's just keeping me up all night. I've got to change her nappy twice a night. And maybe it's not as bad as having a baby, but
no, look, Nick, let's not make the comparison.
No, okay. I was trying to poke the bear there, but
when I had Disco as a puppy and I would always, now I know what, you know, being a parent feels like and that. And then I had a baby and I'm like, I shouldn't have made that comparison. All good. Anyway, before we press record, I wanted to press record because we were starting to talk about, you know, atom bombs and all that kind of stuff. So I thought better press record. You said you had an affinity for the man who made the atom bomb.
I didn't have an affinity for
Sorry.
him. I had... well,
I've misquoted you there, Nick. Sorry.
I believe you have, Ryan, and I think you made a Freudian slip there.
Can you elaborate? What were you talking about there?
So we were talking about social media, and you recently watched the social
dilemma on Netflix. A lot of people listening would have seen it.
Would they have?
Yeah, I think, you know, I was a bit late to the party, but when it first came out on Netflix, I think, a lot of people sort of jumped on and had it. It was one of those popular ones when it first came out.
So a lot of listeners may have seen it. And and you were saying about the guy who created the algorithm to, you know, watch the next video, and then an hour later you're deep down a rabbit hole.
The suggested video algorithm on YouTube.
Yeah. And I said, well, it's not akin, but it does, it leads my mind to thinking about, you know, so he's now the guy who created this algorithm is now trying to help people to not get stuck in that loop that he's created. Yeah. So he's sort of had this moral dilemma because of the social dilemma. And I thought about the people that made the atom bomb or who've created, you know, nuclear warheads or sort of mechanisms or ways in which to harm other human beings, and whether it's mental or physical. You wonder what kind of person could do that, and then how do they live the rest of their days, you know, hearing, this was dropped on 10 million people dead because of this, you know.
It's like, I think it's all, a lot of these things are created with really good intentions, and then there's just that we just don't have the foresight to be able to see. So here's an example that comes to mind for me is the scientist who invented fentanyl, right? So fentanyl is it's killing more people than heroin now, especially in the US, because fentanyl.
So what does fentanyl do for you?
So fentanyl's an opiate. Okay, so it's a painkiller. So it's
great album, by the way. Great album.
It's like so morphine. So you go to a hospital, you got surgery, whatever's going on, you get morphine. Morphine is heroin. It's just actually a much more pure form of heroin. It's pharmaceutical grade, and that is used just in every hospital around the world. It's been used for a very long time. So you can imagine the amount of morphine, this opiate being used in hospitals around, the country or the world is massive. So this scientist created fentanyl, which is it's way more potent. It's something like 100 to 500 times stronger than morphine, which means...
Why would you need that? Morphine's pretty potent.
So here's why. Because you need such a tiny amount of it to have the same pain-killing effect. The idea of making it would save hospitals millions and millions of dollars and ease the strain on healthcare, right? When it comes to money, this is why he created it. Okay, this is where I'm going. It's like created with a very good...
The double-edged sword coming up.
It's created with a good intention. So he's created this compound, and he's been working at it for so long. And he goes, I'm going to be able to help our healthcare system in America so much. I'm going to save so much money. That money can be put into other things as opposed to buying all of this morphine, because now this thing is 1/100th of the amount of what morphine is. So it's created with very good intentions. But like anything, fentanyl goes from hospitals into the streets. And now if you've got a drug, a compound that's that strong, getting your dose right is just very, very hard. And so people overdosing on fentanyl left, right, and center because it's just so potent. Or they might be getting heroin, but it's mixed with fentanyl, and they take their normal dose and overdose. So fentanyl is now killing massive amounts of people. But it was created with this really good intention, of the man who created it.
He forgot that the people using it were human beings, and they're not very responsible. So
that's right, and that's kind of what's happening with the, when I watch The Social Dilemma, and it's these people who were, working for YouTube or Facebook or Pinterest or Instagram really early days, and it's like, we're going to be able to, connect people all around the world, and this is just this beautiful thing that we're creating. And now it's like it's very hard to have the foresight of what something can become. And it's like, I think was it Jack Dorsey, I think, is one of the founders of Twitter. And, now he's having so much issues around, what should be censored and not, because it's, because literally these
Pandora's box, isn't it?
These platforms can swing swing elections. By purely what they will post. And he goes, when we were in a garage trying to help people connect and share some pictures of themselves water skiing on the weekend, we didn't think that we would have to be making these decisions that affect nations, So it's just like, once again, like we're just human beings at the end of the day. And, all of these things are designed to addict us. And one of the guys who created Pinterest and worked for Facebook, it's so funny because he started creating these algorithms that will get people, addicted to checking their phone. And he said, even though I know exactly, I helped create it. When I go home with my family, I couldn't stop checking my phone. So even though I understood it perfectly what it was trying to do, I still couldn't stop myself. So he's ended up deleting all his apps and getting a flip phone or something because he can't control himself, even though he created it.
The same with the person who invented the atom bomb. Maybe their mindset was, I'm going to save millions of lives, or I'm going to help end a war. But so many people died because of the atom bomb as well. And that's all the double-edged swords. I think we're just irresponsible at the end of the day, aren't we? Like, the thing is, we take things and we just bastardize it, or and everything can be used for good or evil. They're all just tools at the end of the day. Social media is a tool, but you look at Donald Trump at the moment. He's tweeting to his protesters that are run over the Capitol building. He's sort of fanning their flames a bit through social media, and Twitter's had to block his accounts. Like, imagine having to block the leader of America, his Twitter account, because he can't use it properly.
And these are these decisions that people have to make. And I think as humans, we just
should we get tested? Should we before, instead of just being randomly allowed to join Facebook, should we have to do some social media training, or should we have to? Because it's just a free for all at the moment. There's no educating. There's no, this is a tool. This is how to use the tool.
Yeah, but the problem is, the whole commodity, I suppose, of social media is attention. It's like they want people's attention because
it's money, isn't it?
people will pay advertising dollars for that attention. So based on that attention, the more attention a social media platform has, the more data they can collect. The more data they can collect, the more they can predict people's behaviors. The more they can predict people's behaviors, the better quality advertising you get. Like I advertise on Facebook for our courses, and I was feeling a bit guilty about advertising on Facebook after watching The Social Dilemma, because they're getting to a point where they can more and more accurately predict what a person's going to do next, or what content they're going to be able to look at next, or even, they spoke about just subtly altering people's behavior so it's imperceivable to them. And this is when it can get into, a lot of issues.
It sounds like NLP.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah.
And used in the wrong hands.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. It is. It's money. So wherever the money is, that's where it'll kind of go. So I think it's up to us to take ownership.
It would be very difficult for the creator of a social media platform, who has probably sold it for a couple of billion, by the way, anyway. But he's going to go, oh no, we've got 1 million people wanting to use it, but we have to put them through training. Not everyone's going to be responsible with this resource that we're giving them. So only, 800,000 are going to get through. They'll be looking at 200,000 worth of data that they then can't sell, and they'll be like, oh, no, we're being silly.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird because the whole beauty of the internet was that it was just free speech. It was like you could go on there and it was a free for all. That was what was so beautiful about YouTube, is you could go on there and you could literally find anyone that says anything, and there was no kind of restrictions. And then obviously as YouTube gets bigger, money gets involved, investors get involved. Now there's censorship. Now, if I search something to do with, COVID, it won't get shown, or there's certain things with, presidential, or any sort of controversial topic is getting censored. But now people crave that free speech so much that now other platforms are being created that don't have censorship. Like the guy, Brian Rose from London Real, I think he's created a whole platform because so many people are getting sick of YouTube, because it's so censored now that it's not what it once was.
So the people aren't getting what they want.
Yeah, but it's it's very interesting. But once again, it ties back into, a lot of these platforms are designed to keep us on them, and keep us addicted.
So we have to be more mindful and where am I right now, and how long have I been down this rabbit hole for, and what I actually want to be doing with my time and energy, instead of just mindlessly spending it, because we can't get that time and energy back.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it's like I myself, and I try, and I'm definitely not perfect at this, but I try my best to just set some boundaries for myself around this stuff. Like I have all notifications turned off on my phone except for a direct message, only on Messenger. So the Instagram, all the other messages are all off, no notifications. And then taking the planned breaks from the phone as well. And also if you going out for dinner, just leaving the bloody phone at home, like just how experience life, like I took, I might do it again this month, but last January, I did about 6 weeks where I literally didn't have a phone. I put it in my drawer for 6 weeks, and you realize how little you're missing out on when you get back on your phone after an extended break, and you're like, oh, what have I missed out on? You go through your notifications and you go, I didn't miss anything. Like I literally didn't miss anything. But what I did is I didn't spend however many hours a day just staring at that bloody screen.
A client of mine the other day said they had a wake-up call when they got a notification on their phone that they're spending 9 hours a day on their phone.
Oh, my Lord. Whew. So 9 hours a day.
A lot of that was gaming, like poker, online poker, and I don't know what else, but 9 hours. So it was a wake-up call for him.
Yeah. Oftentimes, just having that awareness where you can check can be a bit of a wake-up call for people, because it becomes very, very unconscious. You know, I've even started wearing a watch again. I haven't worn a watch for a long time, but I've been starting to wear a watch again so I can check the time on my watch, because I've noticed I use my phone to check the time, you know, and maybe, you know, 1 out of every 5 times that I check the time, I open the phone as well, just unconsciously. So it's like I'm just going to start wearing a watch so I don't have to even look at the time on my phone, you know. It's just all of these things, because it's, you know, imagine we got like, you know, the scientists, you know, designing these things to keep us hooked on them. So we're up against an uphill battle here when it comes to that. It's like the food industry, you know, like, you know, people using flavors and textures with potato chips and everything to try and create the most addictive, you know, snacks there is possible in a scientific lab, and our poor little personal will has to fight against all of that science.
Well, I think that's where it comes back to being responsible for our own happiness and being diligent for our own health, mental and physical, and having an awareness that there is a system, whether we like it or not. There is a, you know, in a utopian world, for those of us who are more compassionate, I suppose, there wouldn't be scientists in labs and computer boffins trying to create all these ways to make us spend and to get us, you know, into these really unhealthy habits. But that's reality. It's the world we live in. So it falls upon us to learn how to be diligent in that kind of world.
Do you think we have a very like short, you know, foresight as human beings? Like we think maybe, you know, into the future, maybe in our lifetimes, but we tend to not think, you know, what impact is this going to have in 100 years or 500 years or whatever it is. I mean,
oh, totally. I think we're very. You can tell that just by we're quick fix people. We stick band-aids on the symptoms. We just want things now. I want it now. I want it now. It's that, you know, the dopamine hit. It's just give it to me now, and yeah, we'll let the future generation deal with it, or we'll deal with it tomorrow, or, you know. But so many people are just stuck in this survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you know, you've just got your head above water. You don't have a capacity to really look around and be more mindful and just sort of consider what are the ramifications of my decisions and choices. So,
yeah, it's one of the beautiful.
So many people aren't present.
The beautiful quote that I love. I don't know if I get it right, but it's the wise man plants a tree, knowing that he'll never be the one who enjoys the shade of sitting underneath it. You know, I think that's beautiful, you know, to be able to leave things in a better place than what we have them now.
So imagine if we could start doing that a little bit more just in our daily lives, and it's as simple as, you know, I'm ex-army, so clean as you go, plus hospitality as well. But I also learnt, I can't even remember who it was from early on, that leave a room the same or better than what you found it.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like I'll make a cup of tea, and then I'll refill the kettle for the next person. It's sort of it's this pay it forward mentality.
That's so funny. I have the exact same thing, and I actually got it from my first boss when I was an air conditioning mechanic, and I think he just said it really flippantly. It wasn't like a hard rule that he said all the time. He just flippantly, like, you go on and doing a job, and then just leave it how you found it, which means if, you know, you made any type of mess, clean it up, vacuum, bloody all that stuff. But then, yeah, I really adopted that into all other areas of my life. It's become a real program now. So if I'm like staying at an Airbnb, even if I know they're going to have a cleaner come afterwards, you know, I make the bed and clean everything up before I go, because it just, you know.
Being considerate.
Well, it comes back, and I think you might have done this post yesterday or the day before, and I think you even said in the post you're not sure if you agree with it because it's black or white thinking, but it's worth talking about. But it's one of my favorite quotes, and that's how you do anything is how you do everything. And it,
yeah, well, it was an absolute language. It's like, yeah, I still, it's a very blanket rule. So, but I love the philosophy of it. I love the concept of it. So, you know, as I said in my post, how you make your bed, if you take your time with it and actually do it to a standard that you feel good about, but you get up and create enough time to do it, then that's how you'll move through the rest of your day. Where if you just get up and you're in a rush already because you've hit snooze and blah, 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 then, you know, you're going to be in that rushed state for the rest of the day as well.
Yeah, I think it's like if you're doing something what's an example here? I could probably use making the bed, but if you're trying to do something where you're trying to maybe take a shortcut and you're like, oh, that's good enough, even though you know it's not good enough, but you're like, it's good enough. And you're like, but who cares? It's just making the bed. But that kind of attitude then might bleed into relationships. It might bleed into your work. It might bleed into your relationship with money. And you're always kind of looking for a shortcut or something that's just good enough when you know you could be doing a little bit better.
Yeah, totally. But I think I do it because it makes me feel better. Paying it forward for someone else or whatever, or leaving something a certain way. I know someone else is going to benefit from it. So it's not about me, it's about somebody else. And I don't do it because I want thanks or because I want to be seen to be a thoughtful person or whatever. It's purely because I go to bed that night feeling like I've made somebody else's day a bit easier.
Yeah, but you do it because it makes you feel good. It's like everything we do at the end of the day is selfish, even if we do it for someone else. Do you agree?
Yeah. On a really deep level, totally.
Yeah.
But it's not. Yeah, it's Well, I don't know. Do you do it? Do you do it because it makes you feel good? It's good. It's a good one to unpack because the end result is that it does feel good. It's just like.
So I imagine, let's say that I leave the Airbnb and it's sparkling and nice, and then so in my head, I can't imagine either the owner or someone coming in and going, "Oh man, that's so nice. He left this in such a good state." But then that makes me feel good. You know what I mean? It's like even Mother Teresa.
But the intent is not for you to feel good. That's just a byproduct. The intent is for you to make someone else's life easier.
The more I investigate this, the more I think I'm doing it because it makes me feel good.
No, you're not. The intent isn't to make you feel good. I know you, and I know you'd be doing it for other people. So it's the filling the kettle thing. It's not because I can have a bit of head wobble and look at me, look how considerate I am. Oh yeah, it's not an ego thing at all.
True. I guess I'm not like I'm talking about it now, but I'm not like calling someone up and going, "Hey, that Airbnb I stayed at, I left it in immaculate condition."
You're not posting it on Facebook. Oh, look what I just did, everyone. That's just part of who you are. It's just, it's words to describe Ryan would be considerate, mindful, thoughtful, generous, all these things. So
yeah, it's another quote I like as well is, who are you when no one's watching? I like that one as well.
I think it's to expand on it. I think it's integrity is what you do when no one's watching or something along those lines. So it's if you're walking down the street and there's heaps of people around, you see some litter on the ground and you pick it up and you sort of give a little glance around to make sure everyone's watching, and then you put it in the bin and you walk off and you're like, oh, yeah, and everyone's like, oh, did you see that guy? Oh, how thoughtful. But if you do it at pitch black, midnight, no one else is around, and you do pick up the rubbish and put it in the bin, that's the integrity part of it.
Yeah. And it also depends what story you put around it as well. Because there's a bit of litter on the ground, and so the situation in front of me is saying, I'm going to pick that up and put it in the bin. But then you can have a story, and then you're like, well, who did this? People shouldn't be littering. Did someone throw that out their window? What a dickhead. I think
Well, that's unnecessary suffering.
You've
gone into... Yeah.
You've gone into mind.
Yeah, totally. But to expand on that one, that's the standard you walk by is the standard that you set. And that really resonated when, I don't know if you remember, but in Frankston last year or the year before, there was a big King hit incident.
Right, okay.
And there was 3 blokes walking down the street, and this is on CCTV, and a guy's walking this way, and the guy on the right just absolutely poleaxes this dude for no reason other than he just wanted to hit someone. And the other 2 blokes just stood there and then just started laughing like, and so they set that standard, and they were immediately in that moment just as culpable as that bloke. They didn't there was no ramifications for his actions from those 2 other people, so it was pretty shocking to see, really.
Yeah, no, that's horrible, that kind of thing. It really is. But you're right, it does. It sets a standard of who you are as a human being, and sometimes we we have such a desperate need to fit in. And this ties back to, those core beliefs you talk about, I must be liked or loved and that kind of thing. And sometimes we'll sacrifice our own integrity just to fit in. And sometimes the harder thing to do in situations, it doesn't have to be an extreme situation like, someone king hitting someone, but, just maybe, a friend saying or doing something, and the easy thing to do is just let it slide. But, a real friend will speak up and pull you up on it and speak with integrity. I think we're going with a lot of sayings and quotes today, but it's like, I remember this one. It's like, a true friend speaks well of you behind your back and speaks the hard truth to your face, whereas most people will speak nice to your face and speak bad behind your back.
Yeah, well, you can tell a lot of person about how they talk to the waiter, and how they speak to the waiter is how they're going to speak about you later on as well.
Yeah.
So I was at a workshop years ago, and one of the speakers, I think I've said this before in a podcast, but it was, who here's got a best friend? Everyone put their hand up. And he said, all right, keep your hand up if that best friend, when you get fired from work or go through a breakup, whatever, they come over with a bottle of wine and they're like, oh, what a bastard, what a bitch, oh, what a prick of a boss, oh, I can't believe that, enable this pity party. And majority of the room left their hand up, and he said, I've got news for you. That person's a good friend, but they're not your best friend. Your best friend is a person who goes, oh, fuck, man, sorry to hear that. That's really tragic. Let's go out and go for a run or go for a hike, or let's go and, they don't enable you to stay in that destructive, that unnecessary suffering.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been watching, someone added me to a group on Facebook called the Victorian Brotherhood, and it's actually a really beautiful group. Sometimes something will pop up and it's just, anyway, it's a bunch of blokes. Oh, hang on. I'm stopping what I'm saying because Nick's brought his little puppy dog in. If you're not watching on YouTube, jump on YouTube right about now. Oh my gosh.
Hello, Daisy.
Puppies are the best, aren't they?
Hello, Daisy. Who's this? Say hi, Ryan.
Hi, Daisy.
Hi. Hi. I'm teeny tiny.
I'm getting puppy clucky.
Jump up here. There you go. How's that? Good. They're good there. So you're saying you joined a Brotherhood of St. Lawrence or something?
Somewhat. The stone cutters. Someone just added me to a group, and I just sort of watch because I find it interesting. And it's actually a beautiful group. It's called Victorian Brotherhood, and it's just blokes in Victoria. And it's actually blokes really sharing stuff, from the heart, or their struggles, or that kind of thing. And it's kind of men being vulnerable, and it's actually, I would say, 90% it's wonderful, it's positive. But I'm really interested because oftentimes it'll be like, it's the anniversary of my father passing away, or there's some time, and they're posting a beer and like, who's having a drink with me, or what's everyone drinking tonight. And it's a real this Aussie men's culture kind of thing, that it's like, I'm if it's the anniversary of someone who passed away, or I'm going through a tough time in my life, I'm gonna drink some alcohol, and then everyone else in the group's like, yeah, I'm drinking this tonight and I'm drinking this. So whilst I think it is a really, really positive group, it's just interesting to watch our cultural reaction we have to maybe stressful times in our lives, especially as men.
Yeah. So, but does everyone enable that drinking culture?
So I don't go through and read. It's a very interactive group, which is great. So I don't go through and read all the comments, but it's sort of it's enabled. I wouldn't see. I've never seen anyone in the group sort of say, "Hey, try something different," as opposed to having a beer. But yeah, it's interesting to watch. Interesting to watch that culture, and kind of how as men we are programmed to deal with these things. Because oftentimes I think we get programmed that way growing up. As we're in our imprinting phase when we're younger, we often see our old man, reaching for a beer or whatever it is whenever there's times of stress.
Yeah, but that's just the typical go-to, isn't it? That's what we're all conditioned to do, is coping mechanism. What am I going to do to make me feel better? It's alcohol's the usual reach.
Yeah.
But we're off it until May. Em and I, we're not drinking until the end of May.
Ah, beautiful, mate.
Yeah, so it's going to be nice. Although I found on my birthday, we went out for birthday drinks, so it wasn't a New Year's resolution thing, but it was we'd planned it before that. But we went out for drinks on my birthday, December 29th, and ended up at this Irish bar in Mornington. And I said, he goes, what are you out for? I said, it's my birthday. We just went out for dinner, and we're just coming in for 1 or 2 drinks before we headed home. And he goes, here you go, mate. Happy birthday. And he gave me this shot of whiskey. I was like, oh, thanks. I'm not going to shoot it, but I'll sip on it. And I had the first sip, and it was honeycomb flavored whiskey.
Ah, yum.
Oh my God. And I'm like, fuck. And he's like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, oh my good Lord. So I ended up buying a bottle the next day. And so we had a couple on New Year's Eve.
Yep.
And then when we had something else on the 3rd or the 4th, I went up to Ballarat. So, yes, stopped drinking on Monday. So now we've got 3/4 of a bottle of this honeycomb whiskey just sitting there whispering, we'll see you in May.
Yeah. I'll be here.
Yes, we can hear the call. Hey, what do you do when we're talking about being a good friend? What do you do when somebody doesn't, we call people out on things or reflect things to them, or we don't enable them, but it reaches a point where people get sick of that. A lot of people aren't open to that. A lot of people struggle with you telling them the hard truth. So where do you go in that instance?
Yeah, can you stop moving your microphone around? I'm telling you the hard truth.
I'm just doing it, and I'll pull it back. I'm just going to take a drink.
Look, yeah, for me, I'm very, very aware of, where the boundaries are with certain friends. I have.
Well, do you know if they've got a growth mindset or a fixed mindset? Do you know if they're open to evolving and this, or
it's I don't. Sometimes. Like I can't say, well, this friend's got a fixed mindset all the time, because sometimes people, I think they'll switch. People might have a fixed mindset for 6 months, then all of a sudden the next 6 months they'll have a growth mindset, and then they might revert back. But there's certain friends that I have that I know there's no qualms. I can call them out, and that's what I like in friends. Like, if someone, like I live with Melissa, she calls me out daily, right? But I like that. I like being, humbled and told if I need to lift my game somewhere, and that's fine.
Does she balance it out with what you're doing well, though?
She's working on that. Nah, I'm being a little bit harsh. She is good. She's very, very complimentary. No, she does balance it out well.
She doesn't listen to these podcasts, so you can say what you like.
Oh, I know that. Yeah. No, she's quite good. But obviously, like as human beings, the criticism we tend to give more weight to, and we might ruminate on a little bit more. So even if it is balanced, you just tend to ruminate on the negative. So but then there's certain friends that I know that if I won't give them too many hard truths unless I see them really starting to spiral out of control.
Yeah.
And then there's friends that are in the middle of that, where I know there's a time and place for it.
I've got a person in my life who is a wonderful person, but they're struggling with stuff at the moment, and so they're I see them being disrespectful. I see them staying in their comfort zone. I see them just not putting in, not being who they are. And it's not, I don't judge them for it, because we all have these, I've been there, I've been that person. So I'm not coming at this from a derogatory perspective or anything, but I don't know how to speak to them, because if you try and talk to them, if you try and say, oh, hey mate, did you notice you just did that? Could you do this instead? It's just going to flare them up even more and have an adverse effect. So then you end up walking around on eggshells around them, but then that doesn't do anyone any good either. So it's sort of like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, because there's also an issue of kind of proximity as well, and if it's certain friends or family members and that kind of thing, then it's often better hearing a message from someone else. It's like when at the center, if we, let's say, had a family member, like let's say Mel's mum or something wanted a session, then Mel wouldn't do it. She certainly wouldn't do it. We'd get someone else. Or if the one of the girls' partners wanted a session, then I'd do it. Because it's like it depends as well on the history we have with that person. And if there's certain history with that person, it gets very, very hard to be able to see things a different way and not get defensive.
That's in a clinical setting, but this is in a personal setting. So this is not at the center, or this is not a Myndfit. This is just in a personal life.
Yeah, once again, like it might be worth. I would speak to if I'm running into that issue, then I would speak to friends around this person and sort of have a bit of a take counsel and maybe get people to approach from a few different angles, and because there'll be someone that they resonate with and will be able to take on the message. And even though someone who does get defensive and that kind of thing, it's like seeds are getting planted. And it's like they will germinate at some point. At sometimes people just aren't they don't have the capacity to kind of receive a message, but it just takes a message.
You got to dump the information and then just leave it there.
But then also it's like, depending on the situation, you have to also protect your own energy, So if it's someone that you are around a lot, then it's not like you can kind of just leave them be. Like say if it's a co-worker that you see every day, I can't just say I'm not going to, speak to them until they get the message. You also just kind of need to set your own boundaries, I think, as well, and just let them know, what you are and aren't willing to tolerate.
It's an interesting one though. If, they have to be in your life, then you set a boundary. But if they don't agree with that boundary, they're not going to respect the boundary, so they're going to keep crossing the boundary.
That's true.
Aren't they?
That's true. It would depend on what the boundary is, I suppose, as to whether you can make it uncrossable or not. You'd have to get really down into specifics in that instance.
It's you got to look at the dynamics of the relationship too, and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah, it becomes individual. It's very hard because it's like, because you can set boundaries, but like, can that boundary get crossed? Is there a way I can set a boundary that isn't going to get crossed, or there's ramifications if it does get crossed? And the closer the person is, I mean, the harder that gets, because the boundaries get very, very blurred in that situation.
Well, you just got to pick your moment, I suppose, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like with my, if it's like for me, if it's like family or close friends, like this, I just know there's a point where I just have to accept them for who they are. I'm not trying to, change in any way, but like I'm at a point I don't live with my parents anymore. So it's like I don't have to literally see them every day. If I was living with my parents, then there'd have to be discussions around boundaries, because you can't get away.
Yeah. It's I had a client come in yesterday, and I think he's 3 or 4 weeks into his 12-week program, and he did the classic, and I love it when clients get to this point. He's like, Nick, I'm starting to see it everywhere. He's starting to see how much suffering he's creating for himself, but then he's like, all my friends are doing it too. And I'm like, are they? Oh, that's interesting. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? I said to him, mate, you got to be really careful not to fall in the trap of trying to fix them or change them, because A, they're either ignorant to the fact that they're doing it, or B, they don't want to change. It's just they're normal. It's just what they're used to. So just focus on you. And when you grow, people may look at you and go, oh, what are you doing? Have you had a haircut? Have you done something new? What have you lost weight? I know, a bit of emotional weight perhaps, but when you lead by example, those that are ready for it will be affected by it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's all, this, frequency without getting too woo-woo, frequency and vibration.
No, get woo-woo. I
and
love when you
when
get woo-woo.
and when yours start to change, it's like a tuning fork. If you put tuning forks in a room together, they'll eventually synchronize. It's even, they did a study with grandfather clocks with the pendulum, and they put a whole heap of them in a room, and they're all swinging at different rates, and after a day or two they were all synchronized to the largest clock.
Wow.
How cool is that, right? So this is this resonance that happens, and oftentimes when we start to work on ourselves without getting caught up, because once again, like if we're talking about vibration, we can start to do this emotional and mental work and kind of raise our own vibration. But if then we start to see it in other people and then try and change or fix them, we're just lowering our own vibration, because the whole energy of fixing is a problem. Right, like if I feel like I need to fix someone, what is that telling someone? It's telling them they're broken in some way. It's probably reinforcing their own story of deficiency by me saying I need to fix you. And I think we've spoken about this before. It's like if I'm working with a drug addict, like I don't need to fix you. There's nothing wrong with you. Who you are is beautiful. It's golden. But if you want to change this behavior on the surface now,
how you're operating is the issue.
Yeah, exactly. And so then all of a sudden,
we don't change the person.
Exactly. And this is why you'll find that we can start to affect people without doing anything. Because imagine if we walk into a situation and we're the big grandfather clock because we've doing this work, then other people might start to synchronize to that, and we can start to raise them up. Other people that might be too intimidating for them unconsciously, and that's okay too. It's not up to us. Other people's journey isn't up to us, even if they're like really close friends or that kind of thing. Like we can't shoulder that responsibility.
We can't take ownership over other people's happiness because we've got a big enough job maintaining our own equanimity and state of mind.
Exactly. Like, I had, friends who early on when I was sort of dipping into my really heavy drug addiction, and they were, trying to work out, how do I bloody get him out of this state? And then I disappeared completely. And they would say to me after I came out the other side, like, I just, I wish I had maybe done more. We could have prevented it. And I'm like, no, you're not in charge for my journey. This is my path that I have to take.
If they're taking ownership, they're going to be in a constant state of anxiety, which is going to be part of their, energy that they're sending out, their vibration, their frequency. And so that constant state of agitation is going to be picked up by the person and have an adverse effect. Yeah. So if you can, we talk at work about leaning into trust instead of leaning into fear, and it's so much harder to trust somebody. But when you give off this unconscious sense of I trust you're going to be okay, I know you're going to be okay, that's going to help them to grow in more ways, and telling them you should do this, you should do that, I need you to do this, stop being this way, stop doing that, stop growing, stop being that way.
Yeah, so someone's having a panic attack, just calm down. Yeah. All right. That's never worked in the history of panic attacks.
Stop being so irrational. Sure, I'll just clear the fog and get rid of all my distortions instantly. And
I didn't realize it was that easy. Yeah, but we all unconsciously pick up on these very subtle energies, and the reason we've got detached from them consciously is because we're so stuck up here. We're just so stuck up in the mind. And we all know, like, if you walk into a room, and maybe an argument has happened. The argument stopped, but you walk into the room and you feel there's a tension in the air. There's a tension in there. You can cut the air with a knife. That's just these subtle energies. And the more we kind of come into our body and less into our narrating mind, we can start to become aware of these energies. I don't know if I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but Milton Erickson, the real grandfather of hypnotherapy, like he's the kind of the king. A lot of hypnotherapy now is based off him, and he had some sort of disease with his motor function when he was younger, and he literally couldn't move or speak. He was fully there. He was conscious and everything, but he was just bedridden for quite a long time, not being able to move or speak. And so his mother and his sisters would be coming and visiting him all the time. And so when you lose the ability to move or speak, but you're able to still be aware of everything, after a while, he became so aware to these subtle energies, this really subtle body language. And this is what made him a genius, because he could, after a while, he said, his sister would walk into the room and tell mother a story, and he's sitting there in the bed, and he knew, he goes, she's lying. That's not what happened. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so once he regained his faculties and became this amazing hypnotherapist, he would have clients come in for the first time, sit in a chair, and he would just look at them and go, okay, tell me what happened with your mother when you were 5. And they'd be like, what the fuck? Right? Because he had become so attuned, because he lost the ability to talk and, all that kind of stuff. So he became aware of these subtler energies that are always going on. But we become less aware of them.
That's what the empaths, whether it's not scientifically proven that they're empaths, but the research that has been done is that they have more mirror neurons. Is it mirror neurons that reflect and can pick up on all these tiny little subtle things that other minds can't.
Yep.
And so it sounds like he was probably just tapping into all these mirror neurons that may or may not have been there. And because I have it I get it a lot when I'm doing guided meditations or healing work on an unconscious level or whatever. Close your eyes, and this is so many times I'll hear people afterwards. I go, it was like you were there with me. It was like you were seeing what I was seeing. As soon as I thought it, you said it. And they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, you don't want to say I've got no idea, because then you sound incompetent. but you also don't want to say, well, just through the power of my mind, because then you sound a bit woo-woo. So I just go with that. I go with incompetent.
Well, it's an innate kind of knowing, but you can't explain the mechanism behind it. You can't just say, well, it's this, and this. But like
how I do it's not important. It's just what it achieves is.
Yeah, but there's not, like you say, there's no science behind people that are empaths, but I say the same thing. So the highly sensitive person, research done by Dr. Elaine Aron, and listeners, you can read her book, The Highly Sensitive Person, or go to her website, and there's a questionnaire. And so her research is showing that around, I think it's 15 to 20% of the population what you would classify a highly sensitive person, which once again, it's the same as being an empath. It means that you have a highly attuned nervous system, which just means your nervous system is more attuned to the environment. So you feel more. You pick up on more than the 80 to 85% of the rest of the public. And you'll find that the highly sensitive person, there's correlations between addiction, mental illness, trauma, which makes complete sense, because if we're feeling a lot of, heavy emotions, we feel them more. But there's also a correlation between, creativity. So people that become artists, musicians, comedians, therapists, all of that kind of thing, which makes complete sense. And it's interesting as well, because some of her research, as I was reading the book, was showing that there seems to be that percentage of highly sensitive beings in other species as well. So I think she was doing it with, monkeys. She was even doing it with, I don't know how, I think she's doing it with insects as well. And so she was trying to sort of find the hypothesis behind why is a certain percentage of the population, more sensitive or have these highly attuned nervous systems. And, her hypothesis is that it helps the continuation of the species, because let's say if there's a tribe of 50 people, right? And so of those 50 people, what would that be? What's 15 to 20%? 1/5, 10 might be highly sensitive. Then, at nighttime, if I have a more attuned nervous system, I'm more likely to pick up if there's, a saber-toothed tiger over in the woods in the middle of the night. I'm able to pick up if there's maybe a rival tribe or all this kind of stuff. So it kind of helps with the survival of that tribe.
You're also going to be able to pick up, I think, for me, and I haven't read a book, but I'm jumped on a website and I'm definitely going to read it, because as a highly sensitive person, can I ask people to stop telling me to stop being so sensitive, or making it out that it's a bad thing? It's like, stop being so sensitive. Sure, I'll just fucking pull my brain out and rip all these mirror neurons out. No worries. And I think it's related to EQ. Now, a sign, I can't remember the quote. It is full of quotes, this one today, but curiosity is a sign of emotional intelligence or something. It's being able to entertain something. And so being highly perceptive. So the 4 elements in emotional intelligence is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and then relationship management. And so I think highly sensitive people are very skilled at relationship managing because they're tuned into what other people are doing. They can feel, you feel someone walk into a room and you can feel that they're sad or agitated or upset. So you can then speak to them on that level and, oh, how are you? How are you going? But we're really good at managing conflict as well. So in the tribe of 50, there's going to be lots of conflict.
Yeah.
And so the highly sensitive people would probably be the village elders or the witch doctors or whatever, and the person that people go to, oh, well, he stole my saber-toothed tiger tooth, and Gronk, give it back. I think it's going to be trying to manage those relationships.
Yeah, and I'm sure you run into this as well, because I know that I do. It's like there's always two sides to the coin when it comes to everything, and I think when you do have a highly attuned nervous system, you are very good socially because you can really relate to anyone, because when you do it with clients as well, you can really attune to their emotional state, which makes it very easy to communicate. But then also, we're very good socially, but we can't be in that environment all the time.
Drained.
We get drained. So it's like we've got to have these. We need like like Superman. We need a fortress of solitude to go to recharge. Because otherwise, if we just and I've run into this in the past, because I'm good socially, and in the past I've just been social, and then I just end up with a burnt out nervous system. I end up with adrenal fatigue because there's too much emotional, navigating and that going on.
Well, my kryptonite is complaining. That's my kryptonite. When I'm in an environment where people are just complaining all the time, I can feel my energy is being sucked out, and I'm just like, I've got to go. I've got to get away from this person. They're a lovely person. It's not a judgment, but their constant complaining, the destructive energy and the destructive nature that they're using just really gets to me.
And I think that's a really practical takeaway for listeners. And I always tell with clients, I'm like, just pay attention to your energy. Always have some sort of I call it a dual awareness. Have some sort of awareness as to what's going on in here, some percentage of what's going on in all situations, and then just pay attention to that. And then you start to notice that when I go and hang out with this person, my energy starts to rise up a little bit. I start to feel quite good. I feel a bit joyful, and I leave that interaction joyful. And you go, okay, great. I'm going to maybe spend a bit more time there. When I'm around certain people and there's a lot of complaining or that going on, I find my energy start to dip. When I go and do this act, when I go 10-pin bowling, my energy does this. When I go and play tennis, my energy does this. When I go and do this task at work, my energy does this. And what happens when we pay attention to our energy and we start limiting the things that bring our energy down and doing more of the things or seeing the people that brings our energy up, then we can, I think, create more and more of a better life for our stuff. And like we speak about, we're taking charge of our own happiness and our own inner energy.
I've had to educate some friends and say, I'm your friend. I'm there for you, but I'm not there for you in these areas. I'm not the person you come to just whinge or complain about something, because I can't sit there and listen to that. It affects me, and part of me will be wanting to challenge you on that and to call you out of it, because I want to help you out of your suffering. It's just unnecessary to me. So I've got
that's healthy boundaries.
Yeah. So I've got the perfect job in that regard. Because people are coming to me because they want help. They want to be helped out of their suffering. So, what was I going to say earlier? Just a tip for listeners is to realize that complaining actually damages our brains. It wires it and damages and harms our brain. So if you're complaining, you're giving yourself literally brain damage.
That's a great one.
It's so true though. It's like every time you go, oh, I can't believe she didn't do that, and blah blah blah, you are giving yourself brain damage.
So stop giving yourself brain damage, people. And And I think as well, yeah.
It's as easy as that, is it, Ryan? It's easy to stop giving yourself brain damage. Stop having a panic attack. Oh, okay.
Stop using drugs, whatever it is. Just stop. Just say no. A bloody ad campaign.
Stop being so sensitive.
That. Stop being so sensitive. Oh, hang on. Let me remove my entire nervous system and put someone else's nervous system in there. Like an organ donor. It's like, can I replace my nervous system, please? What was I going to say? And as well, practical tip for listeners is think about the boundaries that you have in your life. You know, I think, and especially around family, you know, like a lot of people have this obligation, you know, they feel with family or certain friends. And it's like, you know, a sense of duty. And it's like, you know, if when you go and see and this isn't my case, I love my family, they're awesome. If you have a family though, which, you know, there's dysfunction, everything, and when you go see them, you feel like shit afterwards. Limit. That doesn't mean you can block them out forever, or maybe it does in some instances, but you just set your boundaries around your energy. You don't have to have this sense of duty where it's like, no, but I have to go there for dinner once a week. It's all once a week, you're going to feel like shit afterwards. Like, just, you know, you're the only one
or go there with the acceptance that you're going to feel like shit, but don't have an expectation that you should feel otherwise. So if you really do want to hang out with your family, frame it mentally that, right, the likelihood based on prior experience is that I'm going to walk away feeling like shit, but I love my family. So I'm just bringing it into the parameters of my acceptance that I'm going to go away feeling like shit, and then I'm going to need to recharge and look after myself, but I'm not going to go there with an expectation that I should feel otherwise.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm going to live in the reality of what is that, no, they're going to fucking whinge and complain, and they're just going to suck all the energy out of me, and I'm going to drive home like 4 kilometers an hour, just going, and then I'm going to get home and just crash, and I'm going to have to self-manage the next day. But that's okay because I love my parents and I want to remain in contact with them.
Yeah.
So choose your path, but
consciously choose your path. Yeah, because you're the only one who lives in there in this body. You know, you're the only one in there. You know, and so you got to take charge.
Unless you're pregnant,
it's not. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm not, by the way. So just remember that. Remember that you're in there. You know, no one else is getting up. You know, feeling your energy in your body for that day, and you've got to really pay attention to that thing. And it's not selfish to do that. For those not watching. For those not watching on YouTube, Nick's Polly and Daisy are having a little wrestle at the front.
Oh, Daisy's really got her on the jowl. And they're sharp teeth, man. She pierced my skin on my belly. Yeah. Look at Polly. She's just going, yeah, it's going. Now it's my turn. I will crush you.
But it's interesting to watch. Once it gets to a certain point, Polly will go back into that sort of submissive pose on her back or on her side.
Yeah,
it's really interesting to watch them.
I'll sit there and just watch them. Like, I could watch this for an hour, but just because it's. I mean, we're part of nature, but just because it's so organic, I suppose. You know, it's just there's no expectations from Polly that Daisy should or shouldn't do this. There's no monkey brain in play here. It's just they are so present.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I wrote a blog about that, about disco, about my great teacher, or something like that was the blog. And it was the same thing. When my monkey mind was going off, I would just sit at home and just watch him for like 20 minutes. And it was just great to watch him because it's just present moment is all it is. It's just beautiful. It's like, we're playing with this toy, okay? And he hears like a car at the front. Who's out at the front? Is that Aaron coming home? Oh, sweet. We're going back to this. We're doing that. When are we having dinner? It's just like, and it's just pure present moment. And I would sit there and go, and it just makes you question, you know, us believing as human beings that we're such an intelligent life form. And I'm like, that it depends how you define intelligence. Because is it more intelligent me sitting there on a couch at home, you know, ruminating about something that happened or something that's going to happen? Or is my dog more intelligent, just purely enjoy in the present moment?
Well, I think animals are more emotionally intelligent than us. So, yeah. That's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Beautiful. All right, that's about an hour, mate. We've just rambled on about all sorts of stuff.
I know. We've just freestyled today, but that's part of the reason why we started this podcast in the first place, because there was never any agenda. It was just you and me making time to catch up, and this is just a vehicle for that. So
yeah,
the listeners have this is what we'd do, listeners, without you here. This is exactly how Ryan and I would have a chat.
Yeah. I should just press record as soon as we jump on, like we did today. We started talking about the social media and the atom bomb, and I'm like, hang on, Nick, stop talking. I'll press record.
we were going to talk about addiction, and I think we did talk about addiction without talking about addiction, without mentioning it. I think
maybe we'll do a deep dive next week into addiction. So let us know. Shoot us a DM on Insta or let us know. Facebook or whatever, if you are interested in hearing more about addiction or have any questions about addiction, shoot them through, and we'll answer them all next week. Or if there's another topic that you want us to talk about, send it through. We'd be more than happy to talk about that. Anything to do with this human experience, we're down for.
The human experience.
It's a funny one.
Yeah. Who was it that said they're not afraid of death because it's just like getting out of one car and into another car?
I don't know, but I like that.
That's great, isn't it?
I always like the one as well. Death's like taking off a tight shoe.
You've been wearing us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But he probably got it from his teacher. But it's like, a shoe that's a bit too tight, and then you just take it off.
Yeah, people are so afraid of death, but it may be the most amazing thing that we'll ever experience. So,
but here's the thing. It's like they're
not afraid of death. They're afraid of not being with the people they love and having all the things that they've accumulated. They're afraid of loss. They're not afraid of death itself.
Yeah, I think they're also afraid that they've, in their perception, wasted their life and spent too much of their life in that survival state as opposed to creation. Because here's the thing. Death's either going to be nothing, right? So it's like people are afraid, it's just going to go black. It's like, but your consciousness won't be there to see that it's black, like it's gone, right? So
energy doesn't just disappear either.
There's nothing to fear there. Or we go on to some other experience, and the energy that animates our body is going to go somewhere else. It's going to go back to source. It's going to reincarnate. It's going to go to a different dimension. We don't know. So it's a new experience. And so you're either going to have this new crazy experience or nothing that you're not going to be aware of. So what is there to be afraid of?
There's afraid of loss. There's afraid of I've accumulated 10 houses and all these materialistic possessions and all these people, and I'm not going to have that anymore.
Yeah, and also I think religion has a lot to answer for, saying that there's a possibility that we're going to go to this internal damnation of hell. Like, for God's sake.
Pun intended, for God's sake.
Yeah, pun intended.
Let's dive into death in another episode as well then.
Dive into death. Love to.
Yes. Oh, awesome. I'm off for skates.
I'm off for some food. We'll see you all next week.
Ciao, peace.
Don't hurt yourself skating, Nick.
I've got knee pads and a helmet and elbow pads now. Emma bought it for me for Christmas.
Can you send me a picture?
I will.
Yes.
Of me being responsible. Yes, I will.
Love it. All right. See you, everyone.
Bye.